Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. This is the Thursday, July 25th meeting of the Stearns County Planning Commission. We will begin. Please join us with rising and doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. We'll do a quick roll call. District 1.
Jason Wienerman.
Thank you. District 2.
Dave Benford here.
District 3 is Jason Crone. He is absent this evening. I am for District 4. I'm Sean Blackburn. I'm the chair of the committee. District 5.
Jacob Hawk, present.
Thank you. At large.
Rich Blankish.
Thank you. And at large number 2.
Tara Ossendorf, present.
Thank you. Our ex officio is usually Joe Persky, but this evening we have Steve Notch with us.
Correct.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Our first order of business is an amendment, proposed change to Stearns County Ordinance 439. Heidi, if you would please take us through that.
Yeah, the county engineer, Jody Tyke, is here to speak on this one and explain what's happening here.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. The County Highway Department is asking the Planning Commission to consider amendments to the ordinance that would require utility companies that choose to be located outside of our road rights-of-way along county highways be located a minimum of 100 feet from the roadway center line. A little background on this. Most recently, what pushed this forward was I brought an agreement to the Stearns County Board of Commissioners in April that requires the County Highway Department to pay Xcel Energy $2.7 million to relocate transmission lines that are located 35 feet from the center line of County Road 2 just south of Cold Spring. When we run into this and we need to have a clear zone when we're reconstructing a roadway, which anytime we use state aid or federal aid dollars, it's absolutely necessary, but we prefer to or choose to design all of our roadways in a similar fashion despite where the funding is coming from, so there's some consistency in driver expectation. In this particular case, it was about 52 structures that possibly need to be relocated, so we have to pay all engineering costs to the utility company and of course all the new materials costs. And so for about 52 poles, we're looking at $2.7 million on a 3-mile project. And that's just their transmission lines. And these poles, again, they're located 35 feet from center line, so just outside of our 33-foot right-of-way line. So in talking with other counties and how they address this, there are several counties across the state that have requirements through their zoning ordinance or land use ordinance that those structures, when the utility companies choose to be outside of our right-of-way, because we will always allow them in our right-of-way by permit, so they always have that option to do that. But many companies, because they don't want to have to pay to relocate when the time comes that we're doing a construction project, they choose to locate, they generally buy a 5 to 10 foot strip immediately adjacent to our right-of-way lines, and which makes it impossible for us to be able to reconstruct or achieve that clear zone that we need to have for safety purposes without paying to relocate them. Some counties that have similar ordinances are Winona County, and basically Winona County's is that services located outside of public rights-of-way have to have a minimal 25-foot setback from the right-of-way. So on our 33-foot wide rights-of-way, that would put them out at 83 feet. That would be helpful, but oftentimes to properly construct the road and match into the adjacent farm fields, our construction limits go well beyond that, so we'd end up paying for adjustment of those structures that are outside of our right-of-way. Blue Earth County has 130-foot offset from roadway center line. Goodhue County's ordinance basically states that any installation within 200 feet of a county highway right-of-way has to have the approval of the county engineer. Those are just a few examples that were easily found, excuse me. So what we're asking, we don't think we need 200 feet, we don't think we need 130, but 100 feet we should be able to properly reconstruct, have that clear zone, grade the back slopes of our rural roadways to the satisfaction of adjacent farmers who actually actively farm those fields. And so I'm asking the Planning Commission to consider this.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion from the panel?
Mr. Chair, just one quick question. So when you said 100 feet, you had the word should be good enough. Is that a qualifier, or is 100 feet, I mean, if we give you more, would that make your life easier, or?
Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman, I think that I know that we would be able to reconstruct these roads within the 100 feet. We also don't want there to be an undue burden on the adjacent property owners. Sometimes property owners aren't overly willing to sell these easements to the utility companies, and they may not be happy that we are requiring those utility companies to be that far out. So the greater that distance, the more concern I have that this would then just shift that burden to the property owners who might not want those utility lines there anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Anything more? Anyone? All right, we'll take a motion then.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, so move that we modify the existing ordinance to move the right-of-way out to 100 feet as requested.
And a second.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? None? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just an FYI, the volume isn't working great in the room tonight, and we're not sure why, so just please ask all the members to get your mouth in the microphone, and the same with the applicants and the speakers, or we're going to just keep bugging you, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Noted. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 1 here. This is to consider a conditional use permit application submitted by Buell Consulting from St. Paul, Minnesota. If the applicants could come forward, please, and have a seat while I'm introducing your file. This St. Paul, Minnesota, on behalf of Tillman Infrastructure in New York, and of Paul Stanek of Holdingford, according to sections 4.8, 7.28, and 9.3 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, to construct a 235-foot telecommunications tower and associated structures and equipment in the Ag 40 zoning district. The proposed project is located in part of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 8 of Brockway Township. Property address is 42775 115th Avenue in Holdingford. We'll do a quick roll call of people who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Thank you. I, however, did not. Jake?
I did.
Rich?
I did.
Tara?
Yes.
And Steve?
I did not, but Commissioner Persky said he had.
Thank you. Thank you. Now let's go to Heidi.
All right, so the proposal is a 235-foot self-support telecommunications tower and the associated structures that go with that. Property is zoned agriculture 40. All setbacks will be met. There won't be any wetland impacts, no stormwater management plans required. All the performance standards from the ordinance are met. There's approximately 41 homes and 9 registered feedlots within a half mile of the property. Most of the area is zoned agriculture 40 with a little bit of transition 20, residential 5, and rural town site zoning in the area too. Properties within the agricultural area on the future land use map of the county's comprehensive plan. Proposed conditions if this is approved. Number 1, upon completion of the tower, a certification that the tower and antenna conform to the latest standards of the Uniform Building Code from a licensed engineer shall be submitted. And construction site best management practices will be required during construction.
All right, applicants, if you would please introduce yourself, your name and address.
Justin Gartner with Buell Consulting on behalf of Tillman Infrastructure. Buell Consulting is located in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Thank you. Is there anything that you wanted to add or share with us about this?
There's nothing I'm here to answer any questions. It's It's pretty straightforward, I think.
All right, Commission, questions for the applicant? Nothing? Okay.
Actually, Mr. Chair, so I was looking at the survey, and so how tall is the tower? Is it 243 feet or?
235 with a lightning rod that takes it to 243.
As I was on the site and looking at the survey, I was sort of wondering, this is on a side slope, just a minor side slope. Is there any reason for that? I mean, should they be on a rise or something, or?
Not necessarily. I mean, the elevation in the area is relatively close. It can be accommodated with the height of the tower, which is what they did.
Okay.
You know, instead of needing 190 foot, they just had to go to 235 to get what they needed. But 235 feet would accomplish what the desired candidate wanted.
Okay.
So,
This is new for me, so I just. a couple of questions.
sure.
All right. Anything more? This hearing is open to the public. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this, please come forward. No one? All right. I will close the public hearing then. Hearing's closed. Correspondence at all to share with us on this?
Nothing was received for this one.
Nothing. Any further discussion at all? All right, we will proceed to the findings of facts. Is the proposal consistent with existing county ordinances? Well, I will say that, yes, it is consistent with Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, Sections 4.8, 7.28, and 9.3. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county?
Mr. Chair, I believe that it does. Specifically the connectivity goals of our comp plan, specifically item number 2, coordinate infrastructure and service needs with development and encourage development where the infrastructure and services are adequate to serve that growth.
Thank you, Dave. Number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, I believe it is. It's primarily an ag, rural kind of environment, so it will clearly be a site on the landscape. But as per the design conditions, I don't think it'll be overly intrusive.
Thank you, Jason. Number 4, how has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, the applicant has submitted a document that's listed on page 9 of the packet that clearly answers all of the design standard questions.
Thank you, Tara. Do we have any other issues pertinent to this matter from the township or city input or any environmental concerns, anyone? All right, then I expect a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, I recommend we provide a recommendation of approval to the full board with the 2 conditions as presented in staff report.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, second.
And thank you, Deb. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to number 2. Number 2 is to consider a conditional use permit application submitted by Biogasco, is my guess. I hope that's close. Project 4 LLC of Rogers, Minnesota. On behalf of Wilwarding Family LLP of Freeport, Minnesota, according to sections 4.8, 6.13, and 9.2 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, to construct and operate an anaerobic digester in the Ag 80 zoning district. The proposed project is located in part of the northwest quarter of Section 35 of Millwood Township. Property address is 38766 County Road 11 of Freeport. Let's do a quick roll call of those who visited the site. Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, District 1, I did.
Dave?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. I did visit the site. Jake?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Rich?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Tara?
Yes.
And Steve?
I did not, but I guess Commissioner Persky has. I'm a neighbor, so I've been there.
Okay, okay. All right, staff report, please.
All right, so for this, they're wanting to construct and operate an anaerobic digester in the Agriculture 80 zoning district. So this will consist of 2 digesters, a concrete thickening pit, compressor unit, and a control room. The renewable natural gas that's produced will be transported to the injection site near Richmond. The property is not within any areas of concern or overlay districts. There's no wetland concerns with this location. The stormwater management plan is not required. They'll be creating less than 1 acre of new impervious surface. Septic system's not required. There will be a feedlot permit required for this too. All the performance standards are met. Access will be from County Road 166, and the County Highway Department has reviewed that already. No outdoor storage related to this facility will be there. Estimated traffic is 3 semi-tractor trailers per week, or 12 to 14 per month. Not within any floodplain, and the soils are suitable for this. Plenty of parking off-site or off-street. There's approximately 16 homes and 7 feedlots within a half mile. The city of Freeport is also about a half a mile to the south of the property. Property is within the agriculture area on the future land use map. Proposed conditions, if this is recommended for approval: 1, the biogas conversion facility shall be constructed and installed in accordance with the approved plans. And 2, obtain all applicable state and county permits related to the feedlot.
Thank you, Heidi. Applicants, some introductions, please. Your name and address.
Jim Wilwarding, live in Millwood Township. You want the address, or? Okay, 25678 Upper Valley Road, Freeport, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Good evening. Tim Evans representing Biogasco, address 12802 Glen Cove Road. And Sean, you're very close. Biogasco on the name. You're very close.
Okay, thank you. And for you?
I'm Sarah Overby, and 25678 Upper Valley Road, Freeport, Minnesota, and I'm married to Jim Wilwarding.
Sound like you had a hard time admitting that. Is there anything that you'd like to add to the report at this time for our information?
Absolutely. So excited to be here, number one. A lot of familiar faces. I think everyone on this board right now has seen our Painesville operation. We are extremely excited to kick off our second project inside Stearns County. We have other counties that we're working with up and running. I do want to point out, total transparency, this site compared to our Painesville site, if you could bring up the picture where we had the 2 digesters. So very similar to Painesville, but this one will actually have 2 smaller tanks versus the Painesville site that has 1. Reason for that, this operation uses sand bedding instead of fiber bedding. A little different process that we're going to have to go through with a little maintenance to it because of the sand dropout into the biomass that we're going to be recycling. Just want to call that out. I didn't know how far you guys look into the weeds and the plans on this, but total transparency is, otherwise it will be identical to Painesville. Painesville is very close to being up and running. Excited to see you folks out there for our grand opening, but no other call outs at this time, and we're open for any questions.
Thank you. With that, any questions from the panel?
Mr. Chair, just clarification, as you indicate in your report, so you're capturing basically the methane out of the manure, preventing it from going to the atmosphere, and the manure is coming back still useful and applicable onto adjacent.
You nailed it.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Anyone? Any more? Nothing? All right, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone here from the public who wishes to speak addressing this application? No one? Nothing? I will close the public hearing then. Thank you. Any correspondence?
Nothing for this one.
Nothing. All right, further discussion, anyone? We will go to the findings of facts then. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, I believe it is in accordance with the ordinance sections 4.8, 6.13, and 9.2.5 of the Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439.
Thank you, Jason. And, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan?
Mr. Chair, I would say that it does, specifically agricultural goals, number 1 and number 4, support agriculture as a desirable land use for the long term and facilitate diversification of the county's agriculture economy. And number 4, strive for and support higher farm profitability and family farm stability.
Thank you, Dave. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not? Well, I would have to say it's a farming community, and it's going to help the community in the area. It's nothing different, so it's got to be compatible, the way we look at it, with the buildings. How has the applicant just demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied? I think if we look at their history and their operation in Painesville, we have an answer to that. Are there any other issues pertinent?
Mr. Chair, just the environmental concerns. We spoke during the discussion, this process will reduce methane, which can deodorize the neighborhood, and also methane's a very potent greenhouse gas.
Thank you.
Removing that from the system will be a good thing.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll look for a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve this CUP.
Thank you,
With the
Dave.
conditions?
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, with conditions.
We have 2 conditions, and looking for a second.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve.
Thank you, Rich. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. All right, moving along to number 3. Number 3 is to consider a conditional use permit application submitted by Tim and Beverly Lindblom, of Buffalo, Minnesota, according to sections 4.8 and 10.1.8 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, to elevate a home addition with an alternative elevation method in the Residential 1 zoning district. The proposed project is located in Lot 9 of Kruger's subdivision of Government Lot 3 in Section 34 of Painesville Township. The property address is 27627 Brookhaven, Minnesota. Members who visited the site? Jason?
Yes, I did.
Dave?
I did not.
Thank you. I did not. Jake?
I did.
Thank you. Rich?
I did.
Thank you. Tara?
I did not.
Thank you. Steve?
And just to clarify,
Just,
Commissioner Persky emailed me like on Tuesday, so.
Okay.
So no, I did not get a chance to go to any of these sites.
Well, I'll just have to have a talk with Joe.
There you go.
All right.
Mr. Chair, real quick, Angie Berg, just FYI, the speakers in the back are not working at all, so folks that may not be able to hear you are gonna have to
Please move
get
forward.
cozy. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, staff report, please.
All right, so this is for a home addition in the floodplain overlay district, using an alternative method rather than using fill. Property is zoned residential 1. The plan was designed by an architect to meet all of the required floodplain standards. This is in the floodplain of Lake Coronis. Property's on Brookhaven Road, which is a township road. For lot coverage, typically properties are limited to a 25% impervious lot coverage. This parcel is currently at 26.7%, and from our records, we can see that it has been that since prior to any rules being in place, so they're grandfathered in for their existing 26.7%. So with this addition, they'll need to remove some impervious so that they maintain 26.7% or less. So that'll be a condition of the permit, if approved, that be taken care of. The septic system has been certified. The plans have been sent to the DNR for review. This is all surrounded by residential lots and lakeshore residential lots and rural residential lots. This area is concentrated development on the comprehensive plan map. Proposed conditions if you recommend approval. Number one, that the as-built condition of the structure be certified by a registered engineer or architect as being in compliance with the general design standards of the state building code within 30 days of completion of the project. Specifically, that all electrical, heating, ventilation, plumbing, and air conditioning equipment and any other service facilities must be at or above the regulatory flood protection elevation or be designed to prevent floodwater from entering or accumulating within these components during times of flooding. 2, construction site best management practices shall be required during construction of the property. 3, an elevation certification completed by a licensed surveyor is required showing that the bottom floor of the addition meets the regulatory flood protection elevation. And prior to issuance of a construction site permit, the equivalent amount of impervious surface shall be removed so the lot does not exceed 26.7% impervious surface after the addition is constructed.
Thank you, Heidi. Applicants, introductions, please.
Beverly Lindblom, 212 Buffalo Run Road in Buffalo, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Husband Tim Lindblom of the same address.
Still living together.
So far.
Good. All right, was there anything that you wanted to add?
No, thanks.
All righty. Commission, questions for the applicants at all?
Mr. Chair, just one quick question maybe. So you've got the addition of whatever the footage is. In order to add that, you have to reduce impervious surface somewhere else. Have you given thought to what you're gonna remove to meet that standard?
Yes, sidewalk.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
That is seldom used, so I'm happy to give it up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I wasn't on the site, but just a question on the helical piers and the soils that you have there. Have you guys done anything related to the soils that are on that site? Just to know if you put this addition in there, what kind of soils are you working with?
No, we have not, but when they put the piers in, they put them in until the machine tells them that there's enough resistance to support the weight of it. And so if the soil isn't real good on top, they keep going down until they do. So they can add extensions on.
Interesting.
As they're putting the augers down.
So you don't know how far you'll have to go, or if you're going to hit good soils with the piers.
No, we have not had any borings done, no.
Anything more? Anyone? Any correspondence?
No.
All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone from the public here to speak on this? I will close the public hearing then. Thank you. Further discussion, anyone?
Mr. Chair, maybe just for clarification, is it Brookhaven, Minnesota, or should it be Brookhaven Road?
Brookhaven Road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to the findings of facts. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, in ordinance 439, it does meet sections 4.8 and 10.1.8.
Thank you, Rich. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I believe it does under a variety of lakeshore living policies, including number 2, which is encourage shoreline protection and restoration methods. In this case, protecting the flood zone. Let's see what else. Where did it go? Create riparian standards that balance the interest of residents and evaluating shoreline housing projects.
Thank you, Jason. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not? I have to say it is compatible because it's not really changing anything. It is
Mr. Chair.
raising.
Yeah. Question for staff related to that. We've seen this before in this area. I mean, this is not something new, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct, yep.
So along those lines, it's just coming to conformance with other places.
Right. We have approved a few of these other same projects. Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, kind of adding on to that is that local governments wished we could just allow these as a right, as a permit, instead of conditional use, because really it's very technical in nature and has to follow building code and architectural standards. But the minimum DNR shoreline standards requires it to be a conditional use permit. So hence why you see these occasionally.
Okay. Thank you, Angie. How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance would be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, the requirement to meet the conditions, plus I imagine with the DNR permit review, they may have comments as well.
Thank you. Any other pertinent matters from the township, city, anything? I think that note on the DNR is helpful. Anything else, anyone? I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, I recommend the Planning Commission provides a recommendation for approval of this conditional use permit with the listed conditions as per the staff report.
Thank you, Jason. Second, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Thank you, Tara. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you're fine. All right, moving on to number 4. Number 4 is to consider a conditional use permit application submitted by Todd and Sarah Tyson of St. Joseph, Minnesota, according to sections 4.8, 6.51, and 9.3 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct and operate a rural tourism business, including an event center and several lodging units. The proposed project is located in part of the southwest quarter of Section 30 of St. Joseph Township. Property address is 13127 County Road 160 of St. Joseph, Minnesota. Members who visited the site. Jason.
Mr. Chair, I did, and I briefly talked to one of the applicant to explain why I was on his parcel.
Thank you. Dave?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. I did as well. Jake?
I did.
Thank you. Rich?
I did.
Thank you. Tara?
I did not.
Thank you. Steve?
I did not.
All right. Staff report, please.
All right, so this is a proposal for a rural tourism business in St. Joe Township. They're requesting a multi-purpose building that's referred to as the hub, 6 recreational vehicle or tiny home lots, and then renting 2 existing cabins. The hub would be available for events such as educational classes, wellness retreats, small business events, family reunions, music venues, small weddings, etc. Just a little background information, the applicants do operate a home extended business on the property and have a registered feedlot. The property is accessed from County Road 160. Part of the property is within the Shoreline Overlay District of the South Fork Watab River, but almost everything that they've got proposed is outside of the 300-foot Shoreline Overlay District. There are wetlands on the property, so further review will be needed at the time they apply for a construction site permit, just to make sure there won't be any wetland impacts during construction. Lot coverage requirements are met. They're proposing to add approximately 40,000 square feet of new impervious, which is under the requirement for stormwater management plan. The performance standards are from Ordinance 439 are all being met. Let's see. There's approximately 18 homes and 3 registered feedlots within a half mile of the property. Surrounding zoning is agriculture 40 and residential 10. And then it's mostly farmland, wetland, and rural residential lots in this area. Future land use map shows this as an agricultural area. Proposed conditions, if this is recommended for approval. Number 1, all applicable licenses from Stearns County shall be issued prior to renting any lodging units or units in the tiny village. This will include plumbing review from the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. Any new signs shall meet the sign standards of Ordinance 439. A sewage treatment system permit shall be obtained along with the construction site permit for the hub and relocating any cabins. Lighting on the property shall be directed to stay on the property. Parking areas shall be installed and made available per the approved plans. The state accessibility code is required to be met, and a certificate of occupancy shall be submitted once it's issued by a licensed building official. The Planning Commission should consider setting hours of operation for outdoor music or require that the state noise standard be met. Guest lodging unit C shall not be licensed or rented until the septic system for the home has been modified to meet the required setbacks from the cottage. The proposed plan will result in 40,298 square feet of new impervious surface. New impervious surfaces shall not exceed 1 acre unless a stormwater management plan is first reviewed and approved. And a wetland determination shall be required prior to issuance of a construction site permit.
Thank you, Heidi. Applicant introductions, please.
I'm Sarah Tyson.
I'm Todd Tyson.
We reside on the property.
Was there anything that you wanted to add at this time to the report?
Oh, there's so much to add.
I don't know if it,
I'm sorry.
if I read this letter that we'd sent to neighbors?
Yeah, you can do that, yep.
Okay.
Can we change the name Event Center to Gathering Area? I think Numbers with the terminology, and it raises a lot of eyebrows.
I don't know.
We gotta go with what's submitted.
I'll just read something that a letter we had prepared to send to neighbors. My husband Todd was raised in St. Joseph and grew up in Pleasant Acres, north of St. Joe. His father grew up in Cold Spring. I've lived in the area for about 45 years. We've been married for 33 years. We plan to live on this property for many years to come. That being said, we are present. We are there. We're wanting to be part of this. It's not a party zone. We have 4 adult children. Our youngest is Andrew. He is with us tonight. He is working with us with our businesses. One of our other sons, Alexander, is going to be moving back from Colorado next year to help in our family business. We have a daughter that lives in Seattle and another older son that lives in Minneapolis, and they come back to the homestead regularly and are part of our goings-on the farm. We're creative individuals, and this land is kind of our baby. It's ours. We've taken care of it. Our plan is to continue to live there and raise awareness of regenerative farming, We do not use any chemicals, any pesticides, anything on our land. There's nothing washing into the creek. We're very mindful of our land. We raise some grass-fed beef, and we raise some pasture-raised poultry on our land. We just would like to raise awareness and teach people about our farming methods, which is part of our plan here is to teach that. A revival of industrial arts and woodworking, craft weekends, teaching some kind of the old-fashioned trades. The structures that we have built thus far are trimmed out with trees that we've acquired from things that other people were getting rid of and throwing away. We're careful to reuse our resources and not waste.
We have a sawmill on site, so we take yard trees and turn them into lumber that have helped facilitate the construction, not the construction, but the lining and interior decors of each of the buildings.
This tiny house village that we refer to would be a maximum of 6 units. That is something that would be planned for later down the road, not something that's going to happen right away, but
Yeah, we should add this is a 5 to 10 year plan. It'll happen incrementally. It's not a cash flowing, money making proposition, so it's going to be done slowly and methodically and phased in over the 5 to 10 years. So it's a lifestyle. It's not really, yeah.
The proposed spot for the tiny house village is approximately 600 feet from the back of our property line, and about the hub or the main area building is about 890 feet from the back property line. The area behind those two, behind the hub area and the tiny house village, is wooded, and there's some lowland swamp off to one side. And then on the back of our property line, our entire property is enclosed with a 5-wire electric fence. So our property is very contained. There isn't things coming and going on all corners of our property.
Keeps the cattle on the land.
Yeah, we had put that up for our cattle. So we're wanting to have this be a community asset for our community, for our area, for people to come and experience kind of the farm life, and wanting to work with our neighbors and be respectful of their concerns and wishes, and have it something that is going to work for everybody.
I should add, the trades are very important to me, and I've watched the high schools transition, and I think people are waking up. The industrial arts programs that we had in the 80s at Apollo High School were phenomenal. There was 9 different instructors with a multitude of courses, and I kid you not, I would not have had a GPA if it wasn't for industrial arts. The ability to have the hands-on, in progress, making things was a very positive attribute to me. It's who I've become. We have a full wood shop with all the fancy tools. We've got welding equipment. We're setting up power to run some a Bridgeport mill and a lathe, and so I want to bring these venues to the public too, to create classes that would hopefully engage some younger generations with hands-on, rather than the CAD programs they've been exposed to. There's something valuable with touching it, feeling it, experiencing it, and actually building it, rather than a computer program. So that's just me, and I think there's a need, and I think we could share that. So.
Commission members, questions?
Mr. Chair, I do. I know we spoke earlier today, but remind me again, the 6 sites, are those like, ultimately, are they meant to be like a dry cabin kind of a thing? Or would they, how would they be?
My banker thought this was clever because we want to, one of the interests we have is building these tiny homes on trailers. Jay Schaefer was kind of the spearhead of this movement a couple decades ago. And it's literally a home that is fully insulated, fully functional on a trailer. You could call it an RV, right?
Okay.
So the goal is to set up shop with these facilities we're producing to actually build them on site and then speculate. We don't need to sell them, but we can place them in our pads, up to 6 of them, and rent them on short-term lodging for some of the events or gatherings that would happen, and then they'd be for sale, right? So if they sell, we produce another one. But again, this is going to be a long-term vision. The labor pool isn't real strong in the trades, and we are actively seeking and continuously seeking for new talent and people interested in learning. So
they really wouldn't have plumbing, running water?
the units they could have, and they may have. They wouldn't be limited to not have them, right? And then there would be the hookups. Tim Haig from WATAB has been consulting with us and sort of helping us, with the design process and the architect to figure out all the concerns and the remedies to make this happen. So like an RV park, they'd have the hookup for a septic and water hookup and power to plug into.
So would it be set up for the RVs as well? I mean, if you sold all the trailers and somebody came in with an RV, would you accommodate them?
I guess that could happen. Yeah, I wouldn't want that to be the focus. I'd want it to be our units.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, a question for clarification. So in a couple of spots of your application, you talk about a small center. What numbers are you looking at for event attendance?
The event space, on one of the architectural plans that it's capped at 100 for the indoor. I don't know. Do you have that? Angie, can you pull that up of that? Okay, yep. So in the lower left corner, those circles are tables, so that is an indoor area. That maximum occupancy would be 100. The gray area above where there's circles, that is a patio area. Weather permitting, there could be people out there as well. Our architect has laid out restroom accommodations on both this level, and then also there are some on a lower level. The ones on the upper level would be sufficient for those gatherings. The restrooms on the lower level would be to service the tiny home areas and the cabin. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So if you had guests would you have some kind of a commercial kitchen where you'd provide meals, or they're kind of on their own?
Yeah, no, we're looking at people would either provide their own food or contracting with like custom catering or an exclusive caterer that would just need a prep kitchen that would bring the food prepared and just ready to serve. But so
you wouldn't be providing breakfast, lunch, dinner for
Right.
guests,
No.
if you will?
no cooking on site.
Okay.
No, I'm curious about some of these other buildings here. You already have a couple of cabins on the property?
We have if we can go back to the. We have an existing little cabin
On the west.
on yep, right there. And then there is another little rustic cabin out it's not shown on here, it's further out in our wooded area, and that would be moved up to where right where your cursor is, yeah, right there. And that one does not have that's just a rustic cabin. There's no plumbing or anything. No electricity.
So it would be within the proximity of 500 feet to the restrooms, which I think is
I think it's 400.
400?
Whatever.
400 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
And how are you managing all of your traffic flow?
So the gray area, so coming in through a driveway, and then the gray area at the top there, right, the driveway goes up and widens out and goes around.
Is that a little bridge then that you have over the creek there?
It is
And that road is going to be able to handle the increase in traffic flow you're talking about? A lot of people coming in and out.
It's a culvert, yeah.
Yep. And our excavator just did some service on that this spring and said it's good to go.
Mr. Chair, if I could, how many employees do you anticipate for this?
Well, the food service would be all contracted out, so none for that. Our adult children are wanting to be part of this, and we currently have a couple of employees that work in our other businesses that have interest in participating in this if we get it up and going. So potentially a groundskeeper and someone helping with cleaning maintenance, and then our family to
And the other businesses that are there now would continue to operate? And then could you remind me again what those businesses are?
we have a hardwood flooring business, so that is installation, sand and finish of hardwood flooring in mainly residential homes, some commercial. We also have some homes that we buy and fix up and resell. So that, of course, is done wherever the house is.
Oh,
But we just, it's a home-based business, so we just run it out of our house.
I'm just talking about this parcel here where you currently live.
That's our home office
Okay.
and where we park our vehicles and have our storage for our businesses, but we don't have any business that
So it's just a
people are
flooring
coming
business.
onto the property for, right?
Flooring business is the only other business you've got going.
The tree company is being reconstituted. It was a company we had in 2012 that went up in smoke with the fire that burned our shed in 2014. So that was disbanded in 2015. And we're getting all the legalities set up, and we're just going to slowly market that for our son, Alex, who's interested in coming to help manage that, as well as a lot of the other endeavors we're involved with. So
thank you.
I could continue.
Does this plan include a stage?
No, not
Not
there's,
formal.
no, there isn't.
Not
There
gonna
won't
be
be
a
room
stage in the
in there.
event. Okay.
Right, if the tables take up kind of most of the room, unless if they're wanting to set up a stage area, then people wanting to use that facility would have to be willing to have fewer numbers or, move the tables elsewhere.
Okay, well, that segues into the question about clarifying the music and noise ordinance. What is it right now?
Well, the state there's a state noise standard, and I don't know what that number is exactly. But typically at the property line, the noise level is required to meet a certain decibel. I don't know what that is off the top of my head.
And what about timeframes?
That's up to you guys if you want to establish a time frame for outdoor music or anything like that. If you want to cap on how late that can go, that would be up to you guys and the board.
I met with the township a couple weeks ago, and they referenced a property in the St. Joseph area that's, I guess for lack of better terms, in hot water. But they said all they have to do is turn it down, and their neighbors aren't happy with this. But he said there is a device you can put 500 feet out from your property or from your venue that'll measure the decibels, and whatever that state standard is, you can monitor that wirelessly. And these are things we'd be happy to look into and to even implement. You can make that part of our arrangement. So I think it can be. At one point when we discussed this a few years ago, an official said, "Well, you can have as many personal parties as you want. Just can't do it as a venue." And this has always been our interest to bring all this to the forefront. But we have had many parties. Trailer Outback, live bands, wonderful gatherings, potlucks, I've never had a complaint. I don't know if anybody even realizes that. I mean, some of the neighbors even join us. In fact, they're all welcome if they want to come, but we have not had an issue. This isn't anything new for us. But again, like I've talked with several of the people on 160, I mean, you're going to call me if there's an issue, and we're going to work it out, you know? If it's too loud, tell me. I won't take it critically. I'll respond actively and personally, and we'll accommodate. So there it is.
At the point of the class reunion, I assume that was a one-night thing.
Excuse me,
The class, oh, yeah.
when we get to public comments, then you can come up here and speak.
Mr. Chair, question for staff. So it's an A40. There's a house on the site. Are there any other building entitlements?
On this parcel, I believe the adjacent parcel has one. They own two parcels out here.
Okay.
So the one with the house is only allowed that one residential dwelling
Yep.
that's existing.
Okay.
So yeah, for this parcel, it's just the one.
So for the applicant, so you said your son is on the site and you have another one coming home. Do you know, are they going to live on the parcel? Because oftentimes we're like, oh, we want to build a house next to mom and dad.
Well, right now, our one son is living with us.
Okay.
The other son and his girlfriend are to be determined where they're going to live.
Okay. Okay.
They're currently residing out of state, so that's why I say coming back, is because they live in Colorado right now.
Nothing more, panel? All right. As I said, this is a public hearing. You are welcome to come up and speak and address this. I realize there's a lot of you who have something to say, so please be brief and don't be repeating things that we've already heard. But please feel free to come up and introduce yourself and speak. Could you make sure that the microphone is on with the green light there, please? All right, thank you.
Don Hartig, address 12998 270th Street, St. Cloud. Our property, my house, probably the closest. My property is right back to the backside of his. And I've never complained about the music, but we hear it plenty times. And I don't want to hear anymore. And I'm worried about our property value going down. And I've tried to do some research. I couldn't find if it will or not, so I don't know, but it's that, and then like the little cabins, one was rented out earlier, I believe, you had one a while ago, and whoever rented it was walking back toward our property and our neighbor's property on there, so that's all my concern. I'm not in favor of this.
Are the property lines posted? You said there was
There's
fences.
a 5-wire electric fence, yeah.
Right.
We do have a walking path that we walk through the woods that goes close to that fence.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any, maybe this is for staff, I'm not sure, is there any community property here that is involved in this, engaging this property at all? Like,
I don't believe so.
okay.
Please.
Hello. Dave Tyson and Jennifer Schmidt. We're representing 12926 270th Street, immediately behind the property as well. We're here to express our opposition to the project as well, as we think it would adversely impact the neighborhood. Primary concerns are the site and characteristic preservation. Sorry, I'll move closer. Most of the buildings around here you can see are residential and modest farm buildings. And according to the plans, the square footage is a pretty large hub facility. So that's not characteristic of our neighborhood. Access and parking concerns. So seeing as the proximity on 160, if there's an increased traffic volume there, that could create some site characteristics of some traffic safety concerns. And also questioning a need for 110 stalls for a 100-person facility. And then stormwater treatment. So with the proximity to the creek, we had heard that there was 40,000 square feet of new impervious. And if this is a phased development, will there eventually be more driveways added that would throw them over that threshold and require a permanent stormwater pond? And then the impact on adjacent owners. So the proposed extended business hours, the noise, just impacting the neighborhood life characteristics in general. So Todd and Sarah currently operate 2 businesses, and they align with the type of rural businesses that are common in our area and contribute to the general positive economy. They do so without causing any adverse effects and safety or well-being of the property owners, but we don't feel that this would be the case for this facility. So as we continue to support those businesses, we recognize and appreciate those existing contributions the Tyson family has made. But over the years, many people have commented what a wonderful haven they have out there, and we want to preserve that for our families. We've had generations here. We just really want to preserve that. So we couldn't have really said it better ourselves, that this is what we want to cherish our homesteads and thrive within the integrity of our area. So in summary, we strongly urge you to consider denying the application.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm David Zimmer, Zimmer Joseph LLC, 12624 270th Street, St. Cloud, Minnesota. We are the adjacent landowner directly to the east. So as our bigger concern is obviously the noise and the increased traffic that'll be coming. It's always been a very quiet area. We hate to see that change. Our other concern is the creek that goes through. That's the South Fork of the Watab. The whole terrain of that land flows down towards the creek. It always has, long before these people have owned it. We've farmed or rented the land from Bill Stummis, or we farmed it ourselves, so.
Right up there.
All right. So our bigger concern is the change in what we're used to from an agricultural area to more of a business area, and we'd like to keep it quiet as it is. So we do oppose, and hopefully you deny this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tara Byrell. Go ahead.
Tim Byrell. We live in Collegeville Township, 13482 270th Street. The corners of our properties touch. According to their permit application, they stated that they bought the property and they are good stewards and they're fulfilling their dream. We're fulfilling our dream as well. We like the peace and quiet. We want that to continue. We know there's been parties in the past. We understand that. We didn't want to complain if it was a one-time issue, but I would not like to see that every weekend.
The other concern too that we're looking at is you guys talked, or it was mentioned about the existing cabins. I did check with Stearns County asking if there was any rental license per se on that. They had no record of that. So our concern is what happens down the road? Could something happen down the road?
If they get a permit for this, what's going to stop them from 60 RV units out there?
As a campground.
We are totally opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, this is Jerome and Donna Carls. We have the land right next to Mr. and Mrs. Tyson, 40 acres agriculture. We don't live there, but we feel that it's really bad for all the people that live there. We have a nice, quiet neighborhood. People shouldn't have to put up with maybe a lot of garbage that's going to be thrown around all over. No, it doesn't belong where we are.
I'm Jerome Carls. I own that 40, and he said he's such a friendly guy with the neighbors. Why don't you tell him what you did with the beavers that plugged up your culvert, flooded my meadow back there? When I was pulling the beaver dam out, he was fighting with my wife.
He was what?
Damn right, you don't pretend you don't remember,
Oh, come on, Todd.
right?
Who's in my?
And then 2 years ago, you ruined my whole damn beaver flooded my whole damn meadow back there. Well, he didn't. He knew the beaver dam was back there. They didn't do a damn thing to get it out. Neighbors had a. The only way they could get out that.
All right. Let's calm down here. Let's calm down here. We're not talking about that, okay?
And then the electric fence that goes around, it also goes over the river. Yes. You can't have that going over the river. Somebody goes down there, they're going to get decapitated.
Who was canoeing that river?
We went down to get rid of the beaver dam, and he almost got.
As long as you stay down the middle of the creek, you can stay on the property.
That's how we got rid of the dam.
Creek goes through my 40. And as long as you stay in the middle of the creek, anybody can, that's public land that belongs to everybody. And that's what we did. I talked to a lawyer, and he said, as long as he stays in the creek, down the center of the creek up to the beaver dam, you can tear it out. And that's just what we did. 2 guys did it for us.
The Watab River was running dry down below.
He's a friendly neighbor.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I will close the public hearing. Well, let's anticipate then, and please move along.
My name is Doug Frederickson, 26545 Jade Road, St. Cloud. I'm the board supervisor for St. Joe Township. We appreciate the opportunity to provide input into the approval process for the Tyson's CUP. We are familiar with Todd and Sarah. They have openly come to our meetings, shared their dreams and goals for the farm property. Many members of our board have attended their informational site visits. During those site visits as well, as well as township meetings, they have explained many environmental, family-friendly practices they hope to demonstrate at their proposed facility. The general theme of sustainability and nature experiences to small groups of guests is admirable. It is the operational realities of an event center, which is what this facility is called, an event center, that brings this board to speak at this public meeting. We have high regards for the Tysons, full disclosure in the CUP. We believe they demonstrate a sincere expectation to remain good neighbors should they be granted this CUP. Many event center type activities listed in the application can be contained on site, thus shielding the nearby residents from most changes should the CUP be granted. One activity, however, cannot. Noise. Family reunions, music venues, small weddings, these are listed in the application. They are many times accompanied by amplified music. This music element, sound, leaves the applicant's property quite readily and to the neighboring resident's property. Other St. Joe residents have been complaining about loud music emanating from another event center in our township for 4 years now. The township has expended significant effort and gained considerable experience trying to reach a mutual satisfactory outcome for the event center owner and the residents to no avail. Shortcomings in the original CUP language and the lack of enforcement measures in place has created a non-responsive relationship between the event center, the county, and the township. This leaves the adjacent residents without recourse for their complaints. Our township board is here to strongly suggest Stearns County Planning Commission take seriously the impact of unwanted noise or music traveling outside the applicant's property line to another, especially when those sound levels could reach above the MPCA guidelines. Looking at today's application, specifically the performance standards A through O, which you guys have in front of you, you'll see why I say that. While considering a CUP for an event center, there should at least be a line item for managing possible sound levels emanating from the site. In that same application, you report there under staff analysis, number 5, other. There's a long list of environmental concerns that should likely include noise, but it's not mentioned. Further, under the recommended actions, line number 7, it says, consider setting hours of operations for outdoor music or require the state noise standards be met. Our board believes both elements are important to be considered together. They are not a trade-off to do only one or the other. Our summary and recommendations tonight. This event center has made it clear they plan to have music events and no limits on the number of them. They have made it clear they plan to operate year-round. It is clear the residents in this area have never been subject to hearing music levels previously at their residences at this rate of frequency. I believe that they will quickly understand the realities of their business is that the money is made with music venues, and it will be hard to resist, as our previous CUP applicant requested 12 in front of this commission. Last month, they sent our residents a list of 37 music events for just this summer, and they were in front of you asking for 12. It grows. Now we'll get to the point that we're trying to make here and ask you guys to help us. The residents have a right not to lose personal enjoyment of their property because of sound levels above the MPCA standards crossing onto their property. The township board, our township board, support for Todd and Terry Tyson's CUP application to operate an event center in St. Joe Township is conditional on environmental services agreeing to work with St. Joe Township to develop new CUP enforcement language that will ensure this CUP recipient remains responsive to the county and the township's reporting requirements and compliant with MPCA noise standards. This commission should add this or similar language to the performance standards listed in this CUP application. This, you've done it before. This, in quotes, it's in this application. This will be required and added as a condition of the CUP. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question for the speaker. Is that the formal township position? So you're
Yes.
speaking on behalf of the township? Okay, thank you.
I'm speaking for the township.
Thank you.
I'm Randy Lang, part of the Joseph Zimmer LLC. The address was listed earlier. What I want to know is when he goes over the limit, there's supposed to be 100 people, but what happens if 200 people show up? Noise goes up. All of this stuff has been planned to just be underneath triggering different guidelines or different permits. So, and like the township guy says, it will grow. It always does. Thank you.
Anyone more? I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair?
Correspondence?
Yep. So we did receive 4 letters regarding this, which you guys all have copies of. So I'll just summarize what those were. Jeff and Katie Blum, they support the request. They have no issues with the proposed event center. Sharon Klein is opposed, will impact hunting and wildlife patterns. The creek that runs through the property will be affected. Wants to keep this a rural and quiet area. Alex and Nicole Stile are also opposed. Tyson's did not communicate their plans with them. The business does not fit the neighborhood. Will impact wildlife, no quiet weekend nights, lost sense of safety and security. There will be a negative effect to the Watab Creek, wooded area and wetlands. Safety concerns having large gatherings and people staying overnight in the woods behind their house after a night of drinking. And then from Mark Muller, he supports the request, discussed the plans with Sarah and Todd and feels it would be good for the community and the environment. Requests an agreement around loud music, including how often and setting hours. That's all I received.
Thank you, Heidi. Commission? Further discussion, questions, comments?
I have one comment. I think the business model that you're proposing is similar to other businesses that are in Stearns County, such as like the Avon Hills Folk Center and what they're doing, the Boho Cafe and what they're doing there to try to bring in music and arts into those areas. So I think it's a similar use to some other businesses that are in the area. I just wanted to put that on the record.
I think Feathered Acres is another one that actually the architect that we hired to draw this up we were referred to them through work that they had done for them.
Mr. Chair, a question for the applicant. So based on many of the public comments, noise and frequency of events appears to be a concern. Have you folks considered what your annual number of events might be and a duration? Okay.
No. Okay. I mean, I understand people's concern with the noise, and like I said, we live there. This is our home, and we're not wanting it to be loud outside parties every weekend. That's not our goal. Our main focus and desire is to do kind of the wellness retreats and the industrial arts kind of thing, and the regenerative farming. Kind of farm stays have become a very popular thing in the state for people from the city to experience farm life and how that operates. So that is our main desire. It is an expensive venture, and so we would like to have other opportunities such as business events or small weddings. It's rustic. It's not a big, it's not going to be a 400 guest wedding kind of thing. That's not what we're after.
Question for the staff. So if we issue the conditional use permit, does that go with the parcel or does that go with the individual?
Conditional use permits run with the property.
So if they sell a business down the road, they will still have the use permit.
Correct. The new owner would be subject to the same conditional use permit conditions and everything that would be approved now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the applicants. What is the time frame for doing this? You had said this is a 5 to 10 year time frame, and I'm just wondering, with the public comment that we've received here tonight, if we were to ask you for additional considerations for you to come back with, is there something that we would be interrupting in your plan?
Well, our first step is to
we're working with Barry Kirchhoff.
Right, we're working with Barry Kirchhoff from Small Business Development on putting together a more formulated business plan. The main building would be our first area of interest to get that started. As indicated earlier, the tiny home village would be something down the road if we can do that, and we were encouraged to put that on this application if it was something that we felt like might be an interest at some point. So that's why that's included in that.
The footprint of the hub isn't all event area. It's accommodations, fixtures, restrooms. There's a handicapped accessible unit, which is required if we're doing short-term lodging. And then 50% of that basement footprint is industrious area to include a wood shop and area for our flooring and real estate restoration company.
Right, so just that second level is event area, and then the restrooms in the lower levels. So if you go down, yep, so the area, the L shape on the top, that is all like for our, where we'd have our wood shop and park our vehicles for our businesses. So that's, it's not all event space, yeah.
So if I can sort of add on to Tara's question. So there were a couple of questions related to the noise and the frequency of events. If you were to ask for a continuance to provide further context on those questions, it wouldn't, you don't have anything lined up for construction, so.
No.
Not at this point.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Angie Berg. So I wrote down some things, and maybe you can add to it if I missed anything in terms of what I heard from the public and some of you. Concerns related to trespassing, future stormwater, character of the neighborhood, noise, and number of events per year, and then the township's comment or recommendation that some language be written up that the township and the county work together on what a noise plan would look like. Many of those things I don't think can be sorted out tonight. I think that's where you're going with that, Tara. And so if I missed anything, let's just get that on the record now. And to the other point is we can continue the application without their consent until August 20th. What would that be after?
We go till October.
Oh yeah, we could go till October, right? Because we get 120 days, and so I think in our experience and your experience, it's probably better not to try to rush through some of these questions. And this is a good discussion, what we heard tonight. So if I missed anything that you all heard, maybe we can talk about that so the applicants can come back with a different request. And the one thing I definitely want everyone to realize is right now there's no limit, proposed limit on the number of events. So just to be clear on that, that is not currently part of the proposal.
We should define events too, because it could be a weekend trade class on, bring your kid and assemble a birdhouse. It could be a week-long course on building a cedar strip canoe, and you can stay right on site. You can travel in from another state, occupy one of our units, and take the class on building a cedar strip canoe. Our talents and abilities and the equipment we're investing in are pretty vast and pretty simple in terms of construction. We're not automated, we're one-off productions. We're not mass producing anything. It's all custom made, custom felt, custom designed, very artistically inclined. And if we can share those, whatever those courses end up being, this process here was 14 months and $30,000. If we wash it under the bridge and we don't do it, we just move on and see what happens. But we are committed to this. We've got a long-term vision. All those little details haven't been worked out. The type of courses, who's going to come help facilitate. I'm in the field of dreams. Build it, they will come. I've got a lot of people that I think I could pull in, that blacksmiths and woodworkers and tradespeople. And it's just such a need in this world today to get hands-on experiences. So that's one of the venues. The homesteading that we do, we have a sawmill on site. We make a lot of our own stuff. We do not pollute. If there's a piece of plastic, I'm picking it up. Damn it, I had a gathering with a class reunion and they wanted to bring bottled water, and I argued with them. Why can't we just put a McDonald's thermos with cold water in it? Why do we need all these plastic bottles? I didn't want to consume the plastic, and they laughed at me. You know, you cheap son of a bitch. And I said, no, you come out to the farm, you'll see where every dollar I've ever made is parked, and it's on that land. I'm staying there till I'm 104, and then I'm gonna lay down and die. We don't plan to sell this place. We're very in love with it and passionate about it. This is not a money-making deal. Nothing we've done on the farm has made money yet. Everything's had to be made off-site, and I keep investing and investing. And yes, we did rent that cabin out for 5 years. The county did shut it down, respectfully. I didn't have my lodging license and go through the proper paperwork. It's been shut down for 1.5 years, going on 2 years. That's a lot of lost revenue that was going back into the proposition. But the point I'm making is we had 104 people on that guest list, and every one of them, maybe I had one complaint, everybody raved about how magical it was and how wonderful St. Joe was. They didn't come to St. Joe because of the other stuff. They came because of our cabin, and they found themselves at the local blend and Milk and Honey and Bella Cucina, and what a wonderful cultural community this is with a lot of stuff to endeavor. So we're not going to destroy this. And if there's an issue, let's put some parameters on sound. Maybe there's 6 outdoor venues and everything else is inside. I don't care. The main focus is a lot of these other things. It's not all about loud music, party, and trash and pollution. I have not used one drop of chemical, and I don't think many people can say that, right? There's not been anything on that property but natural grazing and our own labor to care for it. So,
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I respect the ambition. I respect the vision. I guess I'm a little confused as to what is the priority and really what is the focus of what you want to do. I've heard a lot of different ideas, but it's difficult for me to try to anticipate what the problems might be, because there just seems to be a lack of real clarity about what you're specifically wanting to do. In my past life, I dealt with a lot of complaints about open air music, so I understand that issue, and I don't know, perhaps we can impose some restrictions to accommodate the neighbors, but I have a lack of clarity as to exactly what you want to do, when you want to do it, as far as a timeline. It would help me to have more understanding of what are you proposing to do and when. And it would, to me, it would help facilitate making a decision in support of this. I hope that makes some sense. But I hear a lot of ideas, but need some clarity as to the timeline.
The lodging that we provided we call it the cottage. It's just an outdoor contained unit of power, water, and like I said, we had that online with Hip Camp. Hip Camp was a venue that I heard about on public radio in 2017, and they were connecting campers with landowners. It was just about tents. People could bring their tent and sleep on rural landowners' land. And then it evolved into yurts, and then it evolved into cabins. And by 2018, I had been in contact with these people for a year, Melissa, whatever her name is, and they just, you should sign up. You got a wonderful place here, you got a beautiful property. So we did that, and the experience of sharing our property, sharing our values, talking about the grass-fed process rather than the corn-fed, animals, and stewardship with the land. Regenerative farming is the term that I like to use. Sustainable is one thing. You can tie a knot on the end of a rope and hang there indefinitely, but regenerative is about trying to build the soil back and build up a quality that's beneficial in multiple ways. So that was very inspirational, and we loved hosting and having gatherings. We have a history of doing that and sharing our property and our place and our creations. So that and intertwined with the industrial arts stuff and the ability to just expose people to homesteading and everything we create. So
that was our main wish, was to to do that on a scale where we can have an area, an indoor area where we can have some opportunities for small gatherings, classes, that kind of thing. And the idea for the small business gatherings or small weddings was just an additional, okay, this is something else that this space could be available for people to rent out. And then as far as timelines, our interest would be to start building this main building in the next year to 2 years, to start putting that up, with the understanding that we are not allowed to have an event until it's obviously done and inspected and ready to roll. The main level, as we talked about before, is our kind of our workshop or for our vehicles and our current business, so that could be utilized sooner than later. But this is something that we'll be doing most of the work on ourselves. It wouldn't be contracted out, so it may take some time.
I just wonder if there isn't an opportunity to refine some things, however, because I see a big distinction between offering small classes, educating young people on woodwork or welding or whatever. I agree with you, those trades are needed. But then you start getting into large wedding venues and things like that. That's a whole different animal with a whole different set of implications and challenges for the neighborhood. And so I'm wondering if there wouldn't be an opportunity to refine your business plan and maybe give us some time to process this. And there might be some things that you just can't do. I don't know. I'm just,
How much time do we have? I mean, we've had our introductory meeting with Barry Kirchhoff, Small Business Development down at St. Cloud State. And, what? Well, we had a 2-hour meeting, and I started the meeting off with, I'm $4 million short of the $4 million I need to build this thing. And he laughed, but we talked about all our personal assets, and we talked about our vision. And he said, if you would have came to me 5 years ago, I would have said this is a crazy idea. But you know what? It is a crazy good idea. So he is on the table now. We kind of wanted to wait to get this approval, but maybe we end up doing it simultaneously, is to sit down with him. He says, I'm gonna be critical. I'm gonna help you with the business plan. I'm gonna help you with a budget, and we're gonna get this thing figured out. So we're gonna need to lean on him for guidance. And that, like David, like you indicated, maybe we need to refine this. I think that's what the upcoming meetings with Barry is gonna help provide. So I don't know how fast we can move, if we can correlate that with your October deadline or whatnot, but.
Madam Chair, I'm so used to being in charge. Yes, sorry about that. So in order for the county to make a plan, it's 120, or to have an approval, it's 120 days from when they applied. As the applicants, however, they can continue it and waive the 60 days for a long time, for a year, for something. There's no deadline for us to make a decision if they waive that requirement.
Or they could come back next month. So
Next
if they
month would be-
answer the questions.
Month
Or
would
2
be
months.
too soon.
Okay.
Yeah, because the notices would already have to go out. I think this is too much to come back with in a month.
So, what, if we continue it, we have 120 days, but if you folks continue it, you have 2 months to as long as you need.
Right, it would be tabled. We would table it. And then we would renotice. So all these folks would get renoticed again. They wouldn't have to wonder if it's coming back. They would get a letter in the mail. And these things would be answered and sorted out.
And then, sort of related to that, can we as a commission effectively define an event, saying event shall be limited to an event is 30 people, so you can have 17 events of 30 people. We can do that, right?
Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman, I think that's what the the township chairperson was saying, Doug Frederickson, and it's a good point. Unfortunately, we live and learn through a lot of these things over the years, and I think, yes, defining an event is very important.
Okay.
And I would hope that the applicants come back to you with the proposal.
Right.
You're not supposed to design their plan for them. They're supposed to design it based on what they heard tonight, answer the questions, and that's what you can look at the next time.
So clarification, I was making an example, not a recommendation.
Yes.
Question for you, Angie. In regards to the noise ordinance, you alluded that there's a possibility of the county and the township working together on that. So if the individuals pull back on this, then we can move with that ordinance revision. And then my question for the township supervisor would be, would you have citizen involvement with some of that?
Mr. Chair, Member Blankish, in terms of, it's not an ordinance change, so it's a state noise standard. What I heard Mr. Frederickson say is that the township would like to be involved with what that condition would look like and help the county develop a noise monitoring plan for this business, not just a line statement that says must follow state noise standard. It would be more detailed. That's what I heard, but that's again what we need more time to consult with the township on to see what their ideas are.
Well, going back to the 2040 plan, this area is one of the serious areas of transition, and the information I have received in the past year or so in regards to noise problems has been out of this particular township. So it's critical that it's done right, because you know there's going to be other requests for event centers.
Just if I could piggyback on that, do we have the ability to prohibit outdoor music and require it to be indoor only in a venue like this?
Mr. Chair, Member Bentrude, I think you do. I think that when you make your findings of fact, when and if that comes, you would give reasons why you're doing that, and it would be related to some of the concerns you may have heard tonight or concerns on what you might see in the subsequent plan. I do believe you have the right to do that, yes.
Good question.
Mr. Chair, I just have one more comment for staff. That list of items that you were talking about, Angie, I think a traffic plan or some kind of thing related to traffic would be advisable.
Thank you.
I agree. So Angie, just a couple of process questions. So if the applicant requests a continuance on this, there's the permit fees, no additional permit fees, right?
Correct.
And then the applicant would ask us to continue this until they're ready to return to us. So that would be their process.
Right. I mean, the Planning Commission, just like you did a few months back with a transmission line, you just did it because you were not going to make a favorable recommendation. And so, if you had an applicant insisting on a decision tonight, I suppose you could do that. I don't think you have that, but they don't. My recommendation would be if the Planning Commission doesn't want to act on it tonight, is to table the request to a future date. That's your decision. That's your action. You don't need their approval to do that. We will work with them, answer these questions, bring it back to you when it's ready, and it could be 2 months from now, it could be 6 months from now. We'll work on the time frame.
That could answer David's comments as we work with Barry Kirkchoff to develop our business plan more, define it more appropriately.
Whatever way, I think if we're tabling it then I think we should provide some kind of expectations or list of what we're looking for. And I think one of them is, for me, is a better definition of your business plan and the timeline for implementing those things. And absent that, it's hard for me to support the motion right now. There's so much going on. And so that's up to you to figure out and make a case for what you want to do when, and so I can make a decision, one way or the other.
I guess I never intended to spearhead this, but when the county got intervened with the cabin we were renting, there was an on-site meeting, 3 Township, I invited them, 2 county officials, and then WATAB Septic Design was there. And
Yeah, the bottom line of that, I think, my sense is that there's maybe some common ground here that can be met.
Yeah.
And I think you just need more time, and however you want to take that time, I'm not sure, but that's up to you, but.
So Angie, I will, after this question, make a motion for tabling this as you recommended. What are the items that you have
You have a
where
list,
the board
a
has
list of
expressed an
questions,
interest?
right?
Mr. Chair, do you want me to read through them
Please,
quick?
once
Okay,
more, yes.
And then Heidi can make sure I got what you have. Trespassing, stormwater, character of the neighborhood, noise, number of events, what is an event, traffic plan, better definition of the business plan, timeline associated with each part of the plan, and consider not allowing outdoor music.
Very good.
So hearing that list, I would make a motion to table this to give the applicant time to work with the staff to resolve those questions and bring them back to us at a timely fashion.
And I would maybe add to that, to work with the township in developing a plan that they're comfortable with.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. I have a motion
I will second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, and good luck.
What happens now, they have I understand they have a class reunion scheduled for August. Something that horses on the barn area, or what's the deal?
That would be,
Uh,
that would be a
Not really
private party.
That's not really our concern.
Yep.
One thing that none of you seem to realize, and many of your complaints are about things that you can actually complain about. You can call the police. You can have them complain about noise. You can complain about traffic. You can complain about occupancy and trespassing and these kinds of things. And there's a lot of things that are complaint-based policing. You need to understand that. So when you're complaining about things that you never complained about before, you need to complain to the right place, and you can do something about it. And when you do something about it that way, then some of us can do something about it too. Please keep that in mind. Thank you all for being here.
Mr. Chair, I'll give my name, Angie Berg, and my number is 320-656-3613. I work with Environmental Services, and we can answer your questions during regular business hours. It's an administrative process, not something for the Planning Commission to talk about tonight. So.
Thank you, Angie.
Angie, could you repeat your number for those folks who may not have gotten it?
320-656-3613.
Thank you all for being here and taking part. All right. We're moving on to the cannabis ordinance discussion. Cannabis ordinance discussion. Who's got that?
That'd be me. Can you guys hear me all right, or you want to wait till the room clears? You're good? Okay.
We're good.
So as many of you know, in 2022, the state legislature made some decisions related to legalizing cannabis. What does that mean for Stearns County? What does that mean for the Planning Commission? What it means for the Planning Commission is that we need to do something with our zoning ordinance to allow cannabis. It's not a option that we allow cannabis, it's a requirement. So the way I've explained it to people is that Stearns County has hundreds of land uses in our zoning ordinance, right? From animal feedlots to zoos, A through Z. And of those things, only about 3 are required that the county allow, required by state law. Daycares, licensed residential facilities for, mental health care, things like that. Cannabis is now added to that list. So as much as we all might have different views or opinions on if this was a good law change or a bad law change, what our challenge has been and what we're asking you and the commissioners to do is put on the hat of it's happening if we do anything or not. If we do nothing, it's the Wild West. If we do something, we can do something by managing time, place, and manner. So the legislature basically said what we can do and what we have to do. And so what I want to walk through with you a little bit tonight is what I've been working on with the state. There's a new state agency called Office of Cannabis Management. There's the Association of Minnesota Counties, that's our lobbying group at the state. And then there's League of Minnesota Cities, so we're all trying to figure this out, and we've spent a lot of time doing that. And so what I have developed is what I sent you was a whole lot of stuff. What we're gonna go through tonight is some spreadsheets, right? And some of that language probably looked familiar to you because it's like A40 and it's performance standards, some things you're familiar with. So I'm not going to go.
Andy, just a quick
Yeah,
question. So
sorry.
you're using the word cannabis. Are we talking cannabis grow operations, retail operations? Does the word, when you use the word cannabis, is that all encompassing or is that a specific category?
In terms of what the legislature is requiring us to allow, it's all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for asking a question, and the answer is going to be on some of these things. If I don't have an answer for you, then we will come back with an answer. A lot of these things are all of this in the state of Minnesota has really never been allowed before, and so we're all sort of learning from each other. Our understanding is the cannabis industry is very happy to challenge local governments who may be not following the law, so we have to be very careful in particular in terms of, that we're doing what the law requires us to do. So if I don't have answers, I'm going to write your questions down. If we need to talk more about this in August, we can. That's probably the latest I can have you talk about it, though. So I'll meet as much as you all want. But the reason we can't really meet later than your August meeting unless we had a special meeting is we need to give townships and cities a heads up and a time to do what they need to do, because a lot of people are waiting to see what the county does, right? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. There's going to be 2 parts. Well, there's lots of things that the county board has been involved in. One, they put some restrictions on where you can use cannabis. That's not what we're talking about tonight. They put a moratorium on to give us some time until the end of the year, which may or may not have been required, but it just gives everyone a little more comfort. We're also not going to talk about, at the Planning Commission level, the registration of cannabis businesses. That's going to be a separate ordinance. And so we're going to take the cannabis language and we're going to put it into the zoning ordinance like any other land use, right? Like what we've had lately, solar or biogas, all the things, right? It's just another land use. How does it fit in? Where the registration ordinance is, how many does the county have to allow? How are we going to register them? Do we want a max? What's the fee? All that is not under the Planning Commission's purview, so you don't have to worry about. So some of what you might have read got into a lot of that, and so you can just disregard some of the registration parts. So if I redirect you off of that conversation, that's just because it's not a planning-related item.
So another question.
Yeah.
When we're talking about cannabis, are we talking about the production of the legally consumable cannabis, or is this hemp growth, or is this combined?
So good question. We're talking about, and let me get to my spreadsheet here. I almost printed these out for you, but I know we're not supposed to print stuff anymore. So this is I gotta find what I'm looking for here. Okay. Okay, so to answer your question, I'm gonna answer it backwards forward. So hemp, according to the federal farm bill 20-some years ago, requires counties to, basically calls hemp products agricultural products.
Okay.
Okay, so hemp is, if someone, we don't have any hemp production facilities in the county, but if we did, it would be an ag-oriented business.
Okay.
Okay, but we do talk about lower hemp edibles and whatnot, and then we also talk about medical marijuana.
Okay.
So the approach that we've taken, and hopefully some of this looks familiar in terms of like A160, A80, all of our R districts, commercial, industrial, that's our stuff, right? So that's what the zoning ordinance currently has for zoning districts. Everything on the left-hand side is what the state law allows or requires for license types. So everything from cultivation to delivery. And I can touch on each one of those a little bit, but what we're doing is trying to match, or we are matching, the license type from the state to the zoning standard. And the reason we're doing that is because applicants will be required to come to the county with a letter from the Office of Cannabis Management saying, I am applying to be a retail cannabis business, or I am applying to have an event endorsement. That way we know exactly what they're going to be doing in that building in one of these categories on the left. And so that's, I think, the best way to do it. That's what the Office of Cannabis Management's recommending. So I think it's going to work out easier than trying to condense it. So I'm going to take a breath before I keep going through this.
No, this is big. I mean,
Yeah.
So when we're talking cannabis, this is still seen as a controlled substance, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Looks pretty controlled.
Yep.
So if we start with cultivation, and we'll just touch on some of these, some of them are going to be pretty self-explanatory. I think cultivation's pretty self-explanatory. You grow, package, label, transport. They're limited to a certain amount of canopy if grown inside, certain amount of canopy if grown outside. And we're proposing to have that be a conditional use permit in the agricultural zoning districts. What we did is looked at what businesses are currently allowed in the ag districts and thought, well, for one could argue that cannabis is an ag product. You're growing something. I would like to share, I had a conversation with Jason Crone earlier today, and as long as I say exactly what he agrees with, I'm able to share what he said. So we'll see if I get this right. In terms of cultivation, his opinion was we should treat it like any other plant and not necessarily care what you do with the plant after it's manufactured into something. And so that was kind of his take on the cultivation. So again, cultivation would be conditional in the ag districts, prohibited in the residential districts, and then prohibited in commercial, and then in industrial will be conditional. That's what we're proposing for cultivation. So a micro business and a meso business, these were definitely new terms in my terminology. But what a micro business basically is you can grow, manufacture, package, label, sell, and grow. It's basically like micro is mini, right? And meso is medium. So think about doing all the things related to cannabis. You grow, you manufacture it, you package it, and you sell it in a mini fashion. And then think about meso doing that in a little bit bigger fashion. And the little bit bigger is basically, as you can see here, it's a bigger plant canopy. And then it's also, you're limited to a certain number of retail locations. And so, again, in the ag districts, we're proposing those to be conditional. Same with commercial industrial.
Angie, if I can interrupt, it's page 86 in the packet, right? if they want to look at what you on the
Oh,
screen.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Angie, for the cultivation, are we required to allow both internal and external cultivation? Or can we limit it to one kind?
That's going to be a question I'm going to write down. And knowing that what we come back with to you with may or may not be a full yes or no answer, it's likely going to be a decision that the county board makes on how risk adverse do they want to be on getting sued in the future.
I mean, because the reason I bring that up is when you get later in the section, you talk about security. So providing security for an internal grow operation is a whole lot different than providing security on a 40 acre. So
I was always under the impression that legalized growing operation, cultivation was an indoor activity, not an outdoor. It's not like it would be a, fields of corn or something like that. It's an indoor, I could be wrong, but, and
So-
if that's the case, and maybe that's your question, can we require it to be an indoor thing?
I think, yeah, it's kind of the way you asked the question, but I think that I'll write that down. It may or may not be something we have a yes or no answer to. It may be something our attorney looks at and recommends something to the board. But to answer your question,
I mean,
member,
how would you secure that? I mean, if it's, there's no way to, I mean, those plants would be stolen, black market would be enhanced. I mean, I don't think we can, well, I won't share my opinion, but I just think it's got to be an indoor thing.
my understanding, and all indications that we've been given, but obviously we don't know, right? Because this isn't a thing yet in Minnesota, is that they will be indoor, because you won't make a profit growing marijuana outside in Minnesota. I mean, look at our growing season.
Even though it does grow like a weed.
Thank you. And that's the last bad joke of this.
I'll write that down.
Not the joke part.
The description of the activity there, it says less than or equal to 2 acres outdoor, or it could be adjusted based on market demand by the state management office. So, is there somewhere in there that says you can grow 40 acres of marijuana if you want to?
They're not currently under the statute. Under the statute, it's limited to what you see here. The Office of Cannabis Management has also told us to expect change to the state law every year for the next 20 years. So we don't know what for. It could be to increase the limits, and then we go with the flow. But you're right. Right now, 40 acres isn't even an option. So that's the top three, right? That's cultivation, micro, meso. Moving on to manufacturing, I think that's, basically you're taking it and you're making it into the final product, whether it be all the edibles or just the plain leaves. All those things would be under manufacturing. That again, we're proposing conditional in the ag, commercial, and then permitted in industrial. We did look at like general manufacturing, we looked at ag-oriented, we looked at all the ag-related businesses that we currently allow, and that's where we propose the conditional use. Retail prohibited in ag and residential and permitted in commercial and industrial. And again, that's consistent with, you can't, if you're not growing something in the ag, if you're not creating something in the ag district, you can't sell it there. In general is kind of how our ordinance works. So if you're taking the product and you are selling it, we're basically saying you can't have a retail operation in the ag area. Has to be in the commercial industrial. And I think that's very consistent with what we've been hearing that the state is anticipating that counties and cities do, and what Association of Minnesota Counties has seen in their review of different states.
Does the county have an ordinance related to like head shops selling, paraphernalia items and
I
things
don't
like
even
that.
know what that word means.
It's a place that sells marijuana-related paraphernalia.
That sells,
for
that, you know,
consumption.
as long as they haven't been used, they can, bongs and one-hitters and things for,
Regulating the sale.
The tools that are used.
I will write that down. I do not, I know that zoning does not.
most, I think probably most of the area cities probably do. I was just
Field
curious
trip.
if the county did.
I do not believe we do, Dave, but I wrote that down as something to check.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd be curious.
Mhm. What did you call it, a head?
Head shop.
You've never heard that term.
Oh, my.
Clearly better than all of us.
my.
I mean,
We have to have Angie watch certain movies.
see, I was saying we should have a field trip, but I mean,
A lot of the tobacco shops sell devices that are used to facilitate consuming marijuana. And so your tobacco shops sell that kind of paraphernalia
Okay.
to water bongs and things like that. And so I'd be really curious if the county has an ordinance about that.
Okay, got it. So moving on to wholesale, that's basically what you'd think of any wholesale business to be, right? They're gonna purchase, import, and then they'll sell non-retail. So they'll be warehouse building. Permitted in commercial industrial and prohibited in ag and residential. Transport would be a fleet-based business, so we were recommending conditional in the ag districts up to 5 vehicles, and that's consistent with our small truck terminal standard. So again, it doesn't matter what you're trucking, but it's consistent. If you want to do it in the ag district, then you're limited to 5 trucks. If you want to be bigger, then you're a large truck terminal, then you need to be an industrial.
So my question related to that is, because it's a scheduled narcotic, do they need special transportation requirements? I don't think you can throw codeine on the back of a semi. So I'm wondering if they need special transport requirements, do we also therefore need a transportation plan to get them to a road that can support their vehicles?
Good question, got it written down.
I mean, if they have to move with armored cars, we've basically killed our township roads.
So then we'd have to look at the road classifications.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay,
And so this is also another related question. So that's getting the product off the producer. Can we require somebody who's doing this to identify their banking structure? And the reason I ask that is this is still illegal federal. So I know out in Colorado, this became a cash-based business. And if we're moving cash from retailers back to the producers, we're again moving armored cars through the rural areas of our county, which is again going to destroy our roads. And then can you transport this on interstates? Can you drive narcotics up and down the interstates?
yeah, and I think that's probably not a zoning thing, but the other ones would be related to zoning, right? Because it's related to our road,
Yeah.
the quality of the road. I'll still write that down, and
The road question, though, would go what the road is posted at, though, too. You know, township roads are 5 ton if they're gravel, so if they get pulled over, they could get a ticket, correct? Or if it's county 7 ton or 9 ton.
yeah, I don't think it matters what you have in your load, right?
Yep.
You just have to meet it. And we're gonna talk a little bit about that too, in terms of what road classification we're recommending some of these be located on. And yes, I heard your questions, and I do have them written down. Can they transport on an interstate system, can we ask a business to identify their baking structure?
And another question is, can they be required to provide us with a county sheriff approved transport plan? I mean, I'm not thinking of Mad Max here, but I know, well, I haven't had the cannabis yet.
Can we require what again?
A county sheriff approved transport plan. Because these things could be, I mean, if you have on the side of your truck, Wienerman cannabis, Wienerman weed production.
Hey.
I got my trademark already. This is a target. And if we're moving cash back and forth, I mean, the county sheriff may want to know we might have increased incidents here.
You're saying this is a legal Smokey and the Bandit situation?
It could be, yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that particular subject?
I was just curious for transportation, you're talking like the interstates, so I suppose it's what our state agencies that really control the interstates, right? They're the ones that patrol it, so if they have interest to the state, unless you got the DEA going up and down your road, I don't know what they can do to stop them.
I know it's not a zoning issue. So if we can, I think that if we relate it back to zoning and our zoning concerns, we'll try to find some answers. But I know that someone transferring something illegal on an interstate system is not something I need to worry about and you need to worry about.
Okay.
Okay. So, testing facility, again, I don't know what these look like, but you obtain cannabis and you test them, likely because of a quality control thing. And so again, permitted in commercial, industrial.
Why would it be prohibited in ag?
Did we talk about that?
I think so.
I mean, you may have folks who want to test their product coming out of their warehouse.
Well, but here's the thing with that, right? So if they come to us with a letter from LCM and saying we are going to be growing, manufacturing, and testing, then, and they have those 3 endorsements, then they have to be in our appropriate zoning district.
Yeah.
So they might, and so I guess that's a question. Without knowing what a testing facility looks like, what are your thoughts on allowing it in the ag district?
Well, I think if you're growing it and you want to test it to market it,
I mean, we
Should
test
be allowed
other
to do
ag
that.
products. We test
right?
corn
That's what I mean.
and
Like
soybeans.
you
and
test all of that.
Some smokers, just like you have beer tasters.
That's true.
And wine tasters.
I don't think it works like that.
That's a question. What's done there?
I think what I heard is maybe some consideration with allowing that as a conditional use
Yeah.
In the ag, yeah.
in the ag district.
Yeah.
I know we don't know what the testing facilities look like, but you know, if you're
And
gonna
we're
test
talking,
corn, you're
I
gonna
mean,
test.
we're talking the cannabis testing facilities. We're not talking
We're not
testing.
sitting around smoking.
Well, I'm talking, I mean,
They're testing
on the other
THC
side,
levels.
on the other side, there's testing facilities for people who have used drugs.
Right.
So this is the testing of
Right.
the product.
Correct.
Product testing.
And moving on to the next one is an interesting one, right? An event. So an event it's called a temporary cannabis event under the statute. It's allowed for not to exceed 4 days and allows the consumption of cannabis products.
What is that related to?
I had
Can
a
we put that
township.
in a context?
Well, I had a township official say to me, it's kind of like Woodstock.
Weed weekend.
A lot of us weren't
But I
born
mean,
then.
If you
As
want to
far-
see this, go to the Cypress Hill concert at the Ledge and you will see a marijuana event.
Well, I'm just
Enough
wondering,
said.
for other zoned events, what would this be similar to? A music festival?
Right. I think that why we likened it to an interim permit is because we have a temporary use special event in our zoning ordinance, and that's a provisional use. And we weren't comfortable with that being provisional because provisional is permitted. And we feel to be safe as we get going with some of these things that they should have a public hearing They should be heard in front of the planning commission because we don't know what these are gonna look like. And that's a lot of responsibility administratively in our department to just take that on without having a public process. So to answer your question, I don't exactly know, other than it's a place that there's lots of parameters that they have to meet with safety, security, fencing, limit underage, all the things. That's not zoning though, that's law enforcement and that's other people. But in terms of zoning, do we want to allow that? And if so, does the proposal make sense? Are there concerns with that?
Could this be a situation where you got the outdoor music venue things
Right.
going again too?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, like what context is an event to be held?
Yeah, we were just talking about events.
Yeah.
What is an
Right.
event?
Well, it's a place where people can consume in a commercial type situation. I guess it would be maybe like a bar can serve alcohol.
So they could apply for 4 days to be able to have a festival of weed at the bar, weed weekend or something?
Well, I don't know that it could be at a bar. I don't
Well,
know.
it could be like Milk and Honey could do, what is that, 420? What's the police code for?
Oh.
Yeah.
They have
420.
a 420 event.
But-
And that's the police code for illegal marijuana use.
Oh.
But in this case, they wouldn't fall into the right parameter for the zoning, right? So they couldn't, like Milk and Honey couldn't even host it, could they? Because they're not ag zone.
Yeah, they are.
They're not, are they ag zone? Okay,
I
then
mean,
they could.
Most of our counties zoned ag. So,
Why is it different for interim event planning versus conditional? Conditional because you get it one time with conditions and it goes on forever versus interim is just one time.
one and done.
Okay.
It's the safest zoning approach to something that we are unfamiliar with, while still allowing it as an option, but learning from it as if we have any. I don't. Again, we don't know. We can't look at another county and say, "Oh, Goodhue did that," and well, we don't know.
So just to get back to basics, what's the T20 again? Is the T20, I know it's an artifact of the old zoning, but is it the bridge between an ag and residential? And if so, what was the logic among staff for putting T20 with the R as opposed to T20 with the A?
I think it's the density because it's 1 per 20 instead of 1 per 40. So the likelihood there's more transitional 20 zoning districts near R10s and R5s and R1s.
Okay.
And we'll touch on setbacks a little bit. There's limited setbacks that we can have, but that's an interesting question, right? And T20 is really all the uses that are allowed in the A40 zoning district are allowed in T20 except for the animal units. And so I could see why maybe we could consider shifting it over if it wasn't for the fact that so many of them are next to residential districts.
I have no preference. It was just a clarification.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And then last is delivery service. Again, that's a fleet-based business, and that would be what someone explained to me as like, what's it called again?
Grubhub or
Grubhub.
Uber Eats or Food Dudes or.
Yeah. So you're like
Just order it and they bring it to your house.
Wow.
Yep. So that's what we're proposing in the ag district as conditional and then permitted in commercial industrial.
So it's prohibited to operate a delivery service business in the transitional or the residential, but you could operate that business.
Right.
Commercial, industrial, or ag. Okay.
Weed dudes.
You can make a lot of money doing that.
Well, you combine food and weed, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's.
Gonna need to supplement my retirement.
I know.
Your pizza.
I could,
Got a retirement plan.
Being pastor doesn't pay all that much, so I mean, it's a holy
Something
separated by
on the
God.
side.
Theoretic.
Is there a, just thought just occurred to me is, As cities expand out and start bringing rural, or excuse me, ag land into a city, it's possible, right, that we could approve maybe down the road a cannabis facility in an ag area that all of a sudden now becomes part of a city. I mean, can we have any kind of a buffer or any kind of requirement that adjacent to a municipality, for example, that it couldn't be allowed or something like that?
So we'd have to do it by zoning district. I know we can't do it by, well, that's a good point. I'm gonna cruise onto this one section that we talk about setbacks.
And we can make that decision. I mean, we could deny a permit because you're right next to a urban area.
Yeah, I mean, can we? I mean, if it's zoned ag, and I don't know, maybe that doesn't happen, but maybe if it does, and that land potentially becomes into the city, then
The only thing that could happen if the city has an ordinance that they can only have one cannabis shop and they annex that land, there's gonna be an issue.
Yeah. Maybe to anticipate that dilemma as well. I mean, I don't know.
Well, and that last comment made would be related to the registration. So again, that's not zoning.
Right.
But back to your point, David, is if a city and a township have entered into an agreement on the land around them, around the city to grow into, it's called urban expansion. And that we have in the column with the residential. So it's prohibited.
Okay.
Now,
So if there was an orderly annexation agreement in place, it would be.
Not everybody has that though.
Right.
So.
But in those situations where that doesn't exist.
It could happen.
Yeah. And so then in that case, do we have any recourse to deny? Because it is adjacent to a municipality, let's say.
Well, I mean, if we go through our findings of fact, we could identify it as incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood.
It's all gonna come back to the findings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you suspect the annexation agreements become more and more common?
No. I don't think we've had any new ones in probably 20 years.
Right. And in, those areas, the city ultimately has those decisions already. And if it's gonna be within 2 miles of a city, they get notice of all the public hearings, so they would have that opportunity to comment too, which could help your findings. Support that.
It could give us a basis for denial.
Right, if they submitted something opposed to it.
Yep.
Yeah, future plans, and their comp plan is residential and, definitely. And it would be no different if it was an animal feedlot.
Right.
So.
Or solar, we've
Yeah.
had some cities that kind of have this buffer they've adopted around their city. They don't want to see solar, similar to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. We won't spend a lot of time on medical cannabis and hemp, but these are those license types. Medical cannabis is already in the statute. We don't have any in the county. This is mirroring what is allowed for regular cannabis. I didn't feel like we should be more restrictive or less restrictive for medical. It's the same. And then again, lower potency hemp, following the same concept of cannabis and then medical cannabis.
Angie, just a consideration, can you reach out to maybe St. Cloud Medical Center and see if they have any comment on that?
Like the Centricare?
Yeah.
Or who?
I'm just somebody from the medical community who may be like, we would like to see this more or less restrictive in the county.
Related to the related strictly to medical cannabis, or their concerns with allowing cannabis?
No, the medical cannabis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Healthcare. Okay. So that's the kind of the what and where, and then oh, I'm going back this way, and maybe Commissioner Notch can help me with what page it's on, because my pages are different than your pages.
They were the last 2 pages in the packet.
Okay. So then this is so we talked about the what and where, this is the how. These are all the things like tonight you saw with your cell phone tower and with all the, what else did you even have on, like an hour ago? Rural tourism. What are all the standards that they have to follow, right? And so we're not gonna go through every single checkbox tonight unless you're like, oh wait, that has to be a checkbox or that shouldn't be a checkbox. Basically, we just took, so section 6 in our zoning ordinance are all the specific standards that you have to follow. Section 7 is all the general, okay? So like access, outdoor display, outdoor storage, durable driving surface, transportation plan. These are not new terms in our ordinance. These are things that every business has to follow, no matter if it's cannabis or mining. Except, with the exception of hours of operation. I wanted to touch on that a little bit. So this is one of the areas of the law that basically says, so there's a state minimum. So if a county, city, township doesn't regulate cannabis at all, the minimum for retail sales in the state of Minnesota for cannabis is it's prohibited from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday, and from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Sunday. So that's like no matter what. The statute does give local governments the option to prohibit retail sales even more, but we can't do any more than what's listed. We can't prohibit any more than what they tell us that we can. So we can go up to 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. and then between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Monday through Saturday. So that's a consideration at some point that we'll need to
So we can't be any more restrictive.
correct. And Jason Crone actually asked me a question today on alcohol sales, and maybe you all knew this, but did you know you can buy beer on Sunday? No, I'm kidding. I thought that, no, I actually,
Well, if you're in
did know
Wisconsin,
that,
you can.
but I do forget that often.
It's been about 7 years.
I know. But I also didn't know what a head shop was, so. So Jason asked me about alcohol sales. He's like, well, what's the state law say on that? So I looked that up.
11 to 6.
Yep. And then not before 8 a.m. or after 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So it's kind of curious. They chose something different, but
Angie, do we have any question? So if we're looking at internal grow operations, they're going to be greenhouses effectively,
Right.
or something similar. Do we have any language related to greenhouse operations, such as the water usage or the drainage requirements or anything like that?
we do not. And that's a very good question. And I'm going to skip down to,
Because I'm thinking if we're looking at like a hydroponic operation, they may be sucking up a lot of groundwater.
so, yeah, okay. So it's kind of related to the cultivation plan. So, I don't know what page this is in your packet, but it's where it says derived from 342. 342 is the state law. So one of the difficult parts about writing a zoning ordinance based on a state law is when you don't have the rule. So state legislatures make a change and make it law, and then in a normal way, they would tell their state agencies to go develop rules to have everyone follow. Well, that didn't happen yet. And so I don't know what that's going to look like, but we do anticipate the state rule talking about a cultivation plan. And in here it says, must include and not limited to water usage, recycling, solid waste disposal, pest management plan. They do use a lot of water, and I don't have the data in front of me, but it's so many gallons per day per plant. I don't know how it relates to corn that's irrigated. We'd have to do the comparison. But if it's related to any other land use, right, you have a new dairy, a 999 head dairy coming in front of you, are you asking if they have enough water? That's really up to the DNR and their appropriations permit. How much water are you, groundwater or surface water are you taking? So we're not proposing to be any different than what the rule is going to come out with, any more than we would be on any other operation that we have currently. Mining would be another one that uses a lot of water. right?
So because we have the Bonanza Valley Groundwater Management Area, we would rely on the DNR to do the permitting. We wouldn't perhaps carve off a special provision to protect groundwater in that region.
The answer would be if we're going to do that, we need to do it for everything in Stern, every land use in the county, not just cannabis.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of like the mindset that we have to keep having, and it's not saying that's a bad idea. But then are we going to do it for animal ag? Are we going to do it for irrigation? Are we going to do it for mining? All the things. So, same with electric use. I know in some states they're really concerned about how much electricity you need. And interestingly enough, well, Commissioner Notch connected me with a local utility, and I asked them, which is public information, to tell me the electric usage of the top 3 farms in their area, right? This is an ag, a cultivation or manufacturing facility such as what we're going to see is going to be less than half of what a large animal ag operation is for electric use. And again, that's not something we ask for in those applications. So you may have seen that in some of the AMC documents, but we're trying to keep it to all land uses are created equal, sort of.
So in the ag region, with solar farms, we have the condition that they shall be removed if they haven't been operational for whatever the period is. Can we do the same thing here?
Well, it's funny, and I'm not going to give you an answer, right?
Okay.
Because that'd be too easy. But it's funny because we meaning me and other zoning officials throughout the state, kind of are curious about why we do it even for solar. We do it for solar, but we don't do it for a poultry barn. We don't do it for a mini storage building. So, again, I'm contradicting what I said, because for solar we do require it, and we don't for anything else. You could argue that it is different, and we likely could list reasons why. I don't know that we would be in the position for a building to require demolition, because it could be repurposed into a different use. Yeah. So all the things that kind of are on the rest of the pages, again, are all standard things. Sign, trash, ventilation and filtration, security plan. The things listed under the green, we're kind of like holding on until we get some more information from the state. And I don't know when that's going to be. We're going to have a placeholder for now.
So, question on that, Angie. Maybe you already explained this and I wasn't listening. Why developing the ordinance ahead of the rules? Why are we doing that?
I don't think I said that, but that's a good question. So our moratorium, according to state law, has to expire on January 1st of 2025. We have no idea when the rules are going to be done. It could be November 1st. It could be January. There's there's nothing in statute requiring the rules to be promulgated and finished before January. So it's uncomfortable and it's weird and it's not what we're used to, and it's what we're doing. And so we're just trying to keep those placeholders in there, and so we can.
I applaud staff for being proactive on this and allowing plenty of time for discussion and talking about any adverse conditions or situations. And so, nice work.
Angie, on your registration, it talks about adopt registration ordinance, minimum of 1 retail sales per 12,500 residents. Do they have a classification for that 12,500? Is it county-wide 12,500 residents, or is it on a different scale?
Yeah, so I think, are you looking at this one document? Okay, so this is what I put together to basically talk to the board a couple of months back in terms of what are all the big things that are related to cannabis. One's the public use, where you use it. Registration isn't something that you're all responsible for.
Okay.
And so while I'm very curious about the answer to that question, everyone in the whole state's very curious. We have to all figure that out. We meaning not the planning commission and not me, but our county attorney's office is working on that with others in the county.
Because I know when we're looking at stuff, we could consider density of operations. So we may not want to have 4 feedlots on 4 adjacent A40s. We could sit there and say, that's an awful lot of feedlots. If we're looking at, we may look at 16 grow operations in a township, and that could be an awful lot of grow operations. So I'm wondering what that 12.5.
And that's for retail only.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So that's for retail only. We have to, the state law requires that there be 1 per 12.5 of the residents in a county, but what's not very clear is if they're all in the city, then do townships have to allow them? All that is really confusing yet, and I'm very glad that we don't have to figure that out.
Okay.
Your point, though, of one of the ways that you could limit the potential concerns with cannabis or any other business is you could say we're only you have to be set back 2 miles from another one,
right,
or whatever that looks like. That's a new concept to Stearns County. We don't have setbacks. Well, we do have setbacks for like feedlots for homes, but not a business to a business.
Right.
So we didn't go that direction because it isn't something that we're used to here. So that's a lot of stuff. And I know I told you all to have a special meeting and it just didn't really work, so we did it tonight. But I'm definitely open to what you want to do moving forward. At some point, I'll need a recommendation to the county board on kind of what I just presented, right? Like, yes, no, maybe so. Here's some concerns, thoughts for the board. I don't want you to do that tonight. If you're not ready to do that tonight, we can talk about this in August again. You only have 1 item in August, and it's not a hard one, is it?
Do not answer that question.
As a planning commission, do you want to just talk about it again then? Do you want to have a special meeting?
I don't want to do a special meeting.
I don't either.
So we'll put it on the agenda for the August meeting. Is there any other, I got the questions written down, I'm not going to re-go through them. If you have any questions in the meantime that you think I can or cannot answer, send them to me. Is there any other work that you would think would be helpful for me to come back with?
And just an FYI, in Wade Park, we just we agreed to a moratorium till January 1st.
Okay.
And basically implying that what the state is saying is fine with us. We're not going to change anything. And that 1,200, whatever, 12,500, that figure does carry over as so if you have, it determines how many you can have in a particular area. So Wade Park is its own entity with that same figure.
Got it.
That same figure.
That's helpful. We'll put it on for the next meeting for discussion and for a formal recommendation. And so at the next meeting, be ready to tell me how you want to go through this, because I don't know that you're going to want me to like regurgitate it all again. And I don't need to know that right now, but just think about like, I think this would be easier or better, do it this way or that way. I'm not going to write the actual ordinance language yet, because that's going to be like 50 some pages. That's why I did it in the table format. I think it's
a
just
great start.
easier to look at.
So I guess maybe a question for Commissioner Notch. Does the county board have a desired, unexpressed desired position yet? Or are they fully waiting on us?
Pretty much, like what Angie went, they did a presentation earlier. But obviously, has to go to the planning commission to kind of set the parameters to bring back to the county. It's, I think it was presented, it's the same thing. Nobody knows because you created something before there was rulemaking, and how do you handle something that you don't even know what the rules are? I mean, it's going to be fluid, but the problem is once you have something established, it's hard to change direction.
Right.
I mean, you could then say, oh, this didn't work, so we're not going to allow it anywhere else, but you know, you've opened the door, so to speak, and it's unfortunate that this is kind of happening in reverse order, but we're stuck with. I mean, I applaud staff too, because trying to wade through something where you have no rules, but you're supposed to allow it, really makes it tough.
Well, they're starting to incorporate basically the same rules as alcohol. And they're looking at distributors as liquor stores and to manage the product and et cetera. And so it has a lot of the same kinds of boundaries and customer base and all of those types of things that just kind of make it a little easier to have at least something to go with. I think that they've already, like St. Cloud has already awarded Coburn's a distributorship or something that they're to go with, you know, and there are CBD and THC products already on the shelves at a lot of liquor stores, but this is just not the leaf, and this is what we're talking about, is the plant that we're in, the cultivation of it.
So because there's a inconsistency between state and federal law, is there any risk to the county by an aggressive federal prosecutor if we do this?
I don't totally follow your question.
Well, so I'm thinking, you know, if a very conservative attorney general is elected or appointed to office at the federal level, and we have this ordinance that facilitates the growth of cannabis, are we at risk for facilitating illegal activity? I mean, it would sort of be like back in Prohibition if Stearns County were to say, you know, you can make whatever whiskey you want. And so,
I was gonna say, didn't they?
I wasn't around then.
That was survival.
I wrote it down.
I would think, though, the hardest part here is the state created this.
Right, yeah.
So they'd almost have to go upstream.
Well, they'd hit everybody.
Or the county would end up suing the state because of.
Yeah, I mean, every local
would
government
think.
has to allow this. And if they don't, it's allowed anyway.
Right, okay.
Like, I take that back. If they don't do anything, if you don't, like, there's some counties in the state, and we probably would have been one of them 30, 40 years ago. We don't have countywide zoning. Go ahead. Like, there's no rules. So there's some counties that aren't going to regulate this because they don't have a zoning ordinance.
Right.
So then it can just happen like you're following the state law.
Okay.
But if I had my attorney hat on for the day, I would say, well, they're making us do this, so I don't know how we could get in trouble for it.
Okay.
But
You know,
I'll write it down and ask that actual attorney that question.
There you go.
and you know, this was one of the discussions too. You gotta remember, this is a business, so they can run themselves out of business by too many of them. You know, all of a sudden now it's cutthroat. Well, whoever can grow it the least costly is gonna survive, and the other ones are gonna go away. So kind of that might play out into this too, where they're gonna say, well, there aren't enough people here to make it profitable.
I don't know. I've seen the microbreweries go everywhere.
No doubt. That's a lot of
People
beer.
like their beer.
Okay.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your patience.
Well, last thing I got here is minutes from last month, and I was not here. So a motion on the minutes from last month, please.
I would move to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I will second
Now
that.
I've got a motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And with that, we will adjourn.
Ready?
Thanks, everyone.
Now I gotta go play
I-
volleyball.
Yeah,